Chamomile. So the sun is kind of doing weird stuff. Well, I mean, it's shining. That in itself is weird in the Netherlands in January. So if I'm squinting or the lighting gets all weird, that's why. New year, new books. 2016 has been going strong for pretty much a whole month at this point. So I thought, what better time to make a video about my favorite books of 2015. Most of the reading I did in 2015 was required reading, so I read it either for uni or for my state exams, and a lot of those things, sadly, I didn't enjoy a ton. So instead of a top 10 or a top 15 or even a top 20 as you see on some booktube channels, I'm just gonna give you my top 5. First, I'd like to start with an honorable mention, and that is De Verwondering by Hugo Claus. Now, this is a Belgian novel that's written in Dutch, but it's been translated to English by the title of Wonder. Now, I read this book for my literature analysis course, and there's no way I would have picked it up otherwise. I didn't necessarily like this book. It is very hard to read. It's hella confusing, it's hella complicated, and it's purposely written that way. It's meant to confuse you. During the course we just read the novel and then analyzed it to bits. Like, we dissected the whole thing, and it was so great. This is what my copy looks like at this point. The whole experience, although very, very stressful and frustrating at times, the whole experience was just so wonderful and special to me. So I guess this book will just always have a special place in my heart now. So number 5 on my list is The Winner's Curse by Marie Rutkowski. This is a young adult, fantasy-ish, historical fiction-ish, dystopian-ish type book. And this is about a general's daughter who is in a very privileged position in her society, and she ends up accidentally buying a slave, and the story kind of takes off from there. The thing I liked about this most was like the moral questions that it asked. All of the characters are kind of morally ambiguous, and you never really knew who to root for, because there's different sides to the story with different interests, but they both kind of have a point, and they're both likable, so you don't really know which side to root for, and it makes you ask all of these questions, and I really appreciated that aspect of the story. I also really liked the main character Kestrel. She was very smart, very rational, still impulsive, but kind of in an understandable way, and she didn't make stupid decisions that I didn't understand. As for number 4 on my list, I'd have to give it to Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This is the first book by Victoria Schwab that I read, but after reading this I definitely want to read all of her other books. They all sound really great. This book is about 2 men, Victor and Eli, who were best friends in college, and then later on in their adult life end up being arch nemesis. And this book tells the story of how that came to be. Very well done, very well thought out. I also really like the characters. There are some profoundly messed up characters in this, and pretty much all of the characters are very morally ambiguous, but that made them very interesting. Number 3 on my list is 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. I don't actually have a physical copy of this because I listened to the audiobook for this one, and I think that really enhanced the experience for me, because this book is about a boy called Clay, and one day he comes home from school and he finds this box of cassette tapes. And he discovered that these cassette tapes were made by a girl called Hannah Baker, who killed herself recently. And because the book sort of goes back and forth between what's on the tapes and Clay's thoughts, the audiobook format works really well for this, and I also really liked the voice actor who did Clay. And of course this book deals with a bunch of very sensitive topics, but I felt that it dealt with them quite gracefully. And the book carried this very valuable message, I think, about how our actions and inactions can impact the lives of others in ways that are way beyond our expectations and beyond our comprehension. So I really like this book. However, I will say, if you are interested, there are a bunch of trigger warnings for this book. For example, it deals with suicide, rape, sexual abuse, bullying, and also vomiting, and there's probably more that I can't think of. Then number 2 on my list goes to The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy and a sequel to The Final Empire. I won't go into the synopsis for this one because obviously it's a sequel. Basically, this is an epic fantasy trilogy set in a world where the bad guy won. It follows a bunch of thieves, basically, in their shenanigans and endeavors. The magic system in this series is just so cool. I didn't like this book quite as much as the first one, I think, but it was a very strong sequel. It was just as gripping, just as engaging, and just I love the characters in this so much. And finally, number 1 on my list, my favorite book that I read in 2015 and now one of my favorite books of all time, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I read this for my English literature state exam and I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. I have always been very intimidated with classics. I kind of always expect them to be hard and complicated and I'm always afraid that I won't get them. But this book changed that for me. This book made me more willing to pick up classics. I fell in love with the family in this book, with the family dynamic. The characters are so wonderful. This book is heartwarming and hopeful and beautiful and I love it so much. I cannot wait to reread it. If you are scared of classics like me, then please, please give this book a chance. You will not regret it, I promise you. Well, I have a lot of things to say about this book. I have a lot of thoughts, a lot of things that I loved about this, and I could go on for hours, but I am thinking of maybe doing a separate review of this. But let me know in the comments if that's something that you would want to see, because if you do, then I will probably do it. So those were my 5 favorite books of 2015. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will hopefully see you again soon. Goodbye.